Good afternoon, fellow classmates. We are doing our CIT 260 presentation today, so this will be covering the previous 3 lessons of material, covering all the different loops. My name is David Banks. I'll be starting out today talking about the do-while loop. So there's many different reasons why you could run a do-while loop. Basically, the do says to start running whatever code is listed within the do parameters within the curly brackets, and then the while says, for instance, in this example, it says while this is not, so when you don't press X, it will keep on continuing to run this switch case statement in here, and you have different options. For instance, if you want to see battleships, you can type in BS, case is C. For author credits, for the scoreboard, you hit D. So you have a bunch of different options that run inside this code. There's another example that we have. We've mostly used these for creating our menus. So that's what these switch case statements represent as our menus. So the do says to display this down here, running these different options. So for instance, this is the help menu. So you hit R for the help menu to display the rules. The O is for displaying objective help. D is to change difficulty, and so on and so forth. And then down here, your while will, as long as you haven't pressed X, which we'll go through a little bit in the video as we run the code, it will keep on presenting these different options during that code. So that is the do-while statement with an embedded switch case statement in this particular example. So next we'll be hearing from Eric.
Okay, next is how we used the arrays in our program. Arrays can be used for many different things, from holding integer data to holding, you have string data, and you can even hold Boolean data inside arrays. We use this array inside of our scoreboard class to hold just some pre-defined scores to test our scoreboard feature. So these are holding integers of 100, 45, 67, -3, and 20, which then we can play with down below in the for and the for if state loops. We used some string array inside of our gameplay. This represents our entire board all the way from A1 through J10. This is what makes us our grid when placing our ships, and also choosing spots for hits or misses. Inside of our settings menu control, I have an array here that holds string data for the different types of game modes that we have thought about including inside of our game. Just a normal game mode, all battleships or all carriers, and such like that. We also have inside our ship placement started using some multi-dimensional arrays here. This creates a ship table, and depending on the ship inputted in the first section of the array will determine how many spots it will take up on the board. So 0 would be the aircraft carrier, and it takes up 5 spots. This is going to help us when we do our ship placement, and also determining on if a ship has been sunk or not. There's, like I said, many different ways you can use arrays, and we're going to be using even more arrays inside of our program as we move forward, both singular and also multidimensional arrays.
Next we'll be hearing from Matt.
Okay, so let me share that. Okay, so this is the how Eric was saying, the ship's placement class, and we have our multidimensional array up here. So I'm going to be explaining kind of how it would cycle through a for each loop. So just kind of explain. The user would, so here's the main loop right here. The user would put in, and we have 5 because there's 5 ships. And the user would put in the column and row for each ship they wanted, and then which direction it was facing. That's what all this is right here. It's just kind of taking up those spaces on the board for each ship. And after they've done that, it starts testing first for the boundaries, like whether or not the ship they've placed fits on the board, and then whether or not that ship has already been, like, overlaps with another ship that's already been placed. And to do that, you need to compare their input against all the other ship spaces. And a good way to do that would be for each loop. So it would take each member of the array in sequence. It would take each one and compare it against that. So here we have it going for integer x, so just any number in the array of ship occupied space, and that would be the all the like, for example, the aircraft carrier has the 5 spaces, and that's what would be in this array. If it's greater or if it's less than or equal to 100, or greater than or equal to 11, so that's the board boundaries. And then we have another for here, comparing it against the ship table, and that would be all the other ones that have already been placed. And as we explained earlier, that's a multi-dimensional array. This one would be the first, would indicate which ship it is, and then the second part would indicate the spaces. So to do that, we have to have the first one specified here in the for each. So for each array, kind of, so the multidimensional would be an array of arrays, so it would be the first array in the set of arrays. And then within that, you'd say integer z, so the first member of that first array in the set of arrays. If it doesn't equal the number that the user has set in, then we can keep going. Otherwise, it'll stop and go to the beginning of the loop. And then we have it go through after it satisfies all those conditions. Then it'll place it and then put that user input into the ship table. So it's stored, and so next time it goes around, that first ship that's been placed will be compared here. And so if they overlapped, it would catch it because it would equal to something that's already in one of the arrays. And that way, the for each loop is useful to kind of compare one thing against a set of things in an array that you've already set. And so yeah, that's the for each loop.
Okay, my name is Rebecca, and I'm going to be talking about the for loop. For loops are good when you know when you want to start and when you want to end, and what increments you want to increase by. And right here is an example of several for loops in our board class, and these create an array and they populate it with the values A through J and the numbers 1 through 10, so that when it prints out, it displays our entire board.
Okay, and I'm Taylor, and I'm going to be doing the if-else statement. So the point at which you would use an if-else statement is that you have one option, and if the code doesn't fall under that option, then it'll do the else, so anything else that doesn't equal that. So here we have an example of it in our scoreboard class. We have it if the high score is less than the sum, then the high score will be equal to the sum, and then it'll also print out this string and print this to the user. And then else, meaning if anything else happens and that doesn't do what we want it to, then this will be printed out and let the user know that they have not broken the high score. So it's when you have one option, and if it doesn't fall under that option or those settings that we have, then it automatically kicks it to the else for anything else that might happen.
And this is Jordan, and I'm going to show the if, else, if. And use that when there's more than two possible choices. Each choice will have a corresponding condition, and when that specific condition evaluates to true, only the commands associated with that choice will be executed. So in our example here, you have the if for user input. As long as it's greater than 0, the hit will increment, and then total spots minus hit. And the outputs, you have spots left, spaces left to find, and hit to win. And then the if-else condition is if the user input is less than or equal to 0, it says please move on to your next turn, and then it's got an else for an invalid input.
All right, and my name's Christian, and I'm going to explain a different kind of thing. It's called the switch case. And so we kind of looked at it within the do while loop a little bit earlier, but basically what that does, what it's best for, is if you have selected input, in this case it's our command. So basically we have our command up here. It's basically it's going to be a string. And so basically the switch case is best when you have like a list of different things that can happen based on the input. And so in here what we have is we're taking the input, and so whatever the input of the command is what's going to happen. And so in this case, if they type in BS, then it'll call this function. There's a lot of them that are commented out here, but it would call whichever functions lit up there. And then if they type a C, then it'll call this function, type a D, and then so on. And so as you see, depending on what input they put, something different will happen. And then at the very bottom here, you have a default, and that's what will happen if they put something that that isn't one of these choices. It'll print out. In this case, it'll print out a little message here. It says invalid choice, and please select a different option. And so right here, like I said, this is really good if you have a set of things, different options based on the input, and it's especially good for our menu here. We use lots of switch cases for our menus and things like that.
All right, thank you, Christian. This is David again. To end out, we are going to just show our program actually being run. So I've got it pulled up right here. I've already hit the compile button. So I'm just going to scroll through kind of just a demo of what our game does so far. So we type in our name, welcome to, uses your name, says, in this instance, welcome Dave, this is Battleship, and here's the different options we were talking about. So I know, for instance, BS for browse has been commented out, so if we select that, it's not really going to give us anything for now. We can go to C for code developers, and it gives you a list of our names, all listed here, our alphabetical letter, and then if you want to exit and go back to the main menu, you would simply type in X, and that would actually end the program. So let me restart real fast and type my name in again. We can go to the play game menu, and this lists out the different players' names. I just added in our names right here. So add in a carrier column, start row. It'll ask you where you want to place all the different ships. I just added in something there so you could see that it was incorrect and it would error out. And so that's the basis of, or that's basically how our program runs right now. You can go through the different menus if you want. So the help menu, there's the different rules, objectives, difficulty. You can exit back to the main menu. the main menu one is there just in case you're in one of the sub-menus and want to go back to the main menu option. There's a few different options. There's some high score menu right here. If you go to D, that's the decorated veterans, back to the main menu, and so on and so forth. So that's how our game is running right now, and that's the different loops that we've covered for the last few weeks. So we will sign off now. Thanks for joining us.